Hi, and welcome to another video series on how to palm read. Today we're going to be talking about the name of each finger, the fingertip shapes, the length of the fingers, and the fingerprints and what they all mean. So when it comes to palm reading, you'll usually see in books and references where people will refer this finger as the Jupiter finger. If there's a mount, which is right here, it's the mount of Jupiter. This is the Saturn finger, and this is the mount of Saturn. This is Apollo finger, a mount of Apollo, and then Mercury finger, which is in the mount of Mercury. You could go this way, but I like to keep things simple and just call it the thumb, index, middle, ring, and pinky finger. And each finger area, you can think of it as, like for example, the index finger has to do with individual, yourself, how you view yourself. The middle finger is how you view or your thoughts on structure, maybe the government, career, in that sense. And then the fourth finger is about self-expression, your creativity, and just how you represent yourself in that way. And the pinky finger or the Mercury finger is communication. So it has to do with communication with other people, your ability to express your feelings, and also it could be even communication in the bedroom. So these are kind of like the areas of your life, if you think about it in that sense. And so, based on the length of the fingers or the amount, how puffy your mounts are, that will dictate what's going on in that area of your life or your perspective in those areas. When it comes to the shapes of your fingertips, there are four main types, and there's the square. So it kind of is roughly a square. And the difference between the square and the spatulate one is the spatulate kind of spreads out. Imagine just like on the edges right there, if you can see it. And then the conic is more what most people have. It's pretty standard. And the pointed one, this is probably not the best picture, but these are photos I'm just pulling off of Google. And it's a bit more, again, I wouldn't say witch's finger, but you can see how it's kind of pointed. Actually, go back to this photo. Like right here, this is more of a pointed finger. This is more of a pointed finger, whereas these are more conic. So take a look at someone's palm and you'll see if they're, let's say if majority of their fingers are a conic shape, that means their personality is going to be probably more like that. They might have a mix of other ones here and there, but for example, if majority of them are conic like this, that means this person can have a strong instinct that guides them through life, or they can act on their hunch. When it comes to pointed fingertips shapes, they're usually creative. You probably might see this on the water hand. They're usually more sensitive in nature. So if you see a water hand with a lot of pointed fingers, you can bet that this person's very sensitive, very intuitive. They might be easily hurt. They could be dreamy or kind of have their head up in the clouds, just like a water hand person would, and daydream. So you can see that this person right here has two. And so there's a dreamy aspect to them where they could be a part of that is creative, that like to be in their own world sometimes. And then for square, these people, you see that the more square fingertips they have, most likely they're going to be more practical, organized. Think of someone with an earth hand. So they're more grounded, they're more realistic. And, the more square fingers they have, the more likely they're going to be very just like conventional. When it comes to the spatulate hand right here, this person can be innovative, energetic, think like kind of like similar traits to what a fire hand might have. They can be very active and they can be athletic or into sports. If a person has a lot of spatulate fingertips like this, then it is possible that they could, because they have a lot of energy, they could be naturally argumentative or possibly self-centered sometimes. So if you look back at this finger, at this hand actually right here, again, it's pointed, conic. So we can tell that this person is probably has pretty good gut instincts, or they're more intuitive, or have an intuitive aspect to them. There's other aspects of the hand that show that they're more, this person kind of has a mix of logic and also intuition. So with this hand, you can see that it's a pretty standard hand. Let me just draw so you guys kind of have a little reference here. Okay. So that's kind of usually the ring finger and an average index finger. They usually go halfway to the middle finger like this. And then with the pinky finger, it is normal to go high up to the line up here with the ring finger. So this is kind of like if you had to look at what's considered average length, long length, or short length. This hand in general, right here, all the fingers are average length in proportion to each other. So let's start off with the index finger. And I have seen some hands where the index finger has actually gone lower, like it's actually this short. So and so when someone has a short index finger, usually again this finger, the index finger, has to do with how you view yourself and as a person. And when it's short, then this person could possibly have low self-esteem or poor self-image. If it's really bad and they haven't gotten help for it, they could get into smoking or overeating or even undereating or alcoholism, just because, not only because this person might have low self-esteem, but they also just generally have maybe a lack of sense of self-worth. So they might not feel worthy at all of what life is giving to them, or they just not, just someone that person, that just doesn't have a lot of confidence as well. So I encourage this person, like if you do have a short index finger, to, believe in yourself and, make sure you express yourself as well. And I also tell people about your true needs and stuff. Don't bottle it up, and because it's not really healthy. For someone that might be a bit more grounded or has done a lot of work on themselves, this person might be just naturally shy, or a person that just naturally withdraws from people. They, as a result though, because they're very, they can actually make an excellent assistant or someone that helps, because your index finger is short, you don't have a huge ego. That ego doesn't get in the way. Now, for people with a long index finger, for something that probably is more so reaches up here, this person, if it's overboard, if they go overboard, pretty much you might be one of those people that have, imagine a person that has much ego. So they might actually look at themselves a lot in the mirror, or maybe they talk themselves up so much. That person, that's just they're overly confident, or they're kind of a show-off person. So this, someone with an index finger, you can kind of think of them like that. They also could have strong ambitions. I guess you can also, another way of saying is also they could be egocentric or arrogant. They could also, you might see a long index finger on a lot of leaders, because those people like to take charge. You have to look at other signs on the hands, but in a way it could be a bad leader if they are a bully, but or just a confident leader who's more grounded. Okay, so let's move on to the middle finger. If you see a middle finger that's more short, so imagine if this middle finger was actually more down here in height. So the middle finger has to do with structure, conformity, convention, just how your views and attitude towards authority, career, responsibility. So for someone that has more of a short middle finger, this could mean that they are not the type to do, they're more unconventional. They might march to different drum beats. So this person, if it's a short middle finger, I don't see them being in something like government or something like a corporation. And if they are, they're going to struggle in it because their attitude's kind of, I wouldn't say abrasive, but grating against it. Kind of like you don't want to follow the rules and you don't want to be seen as a normal John Smith. Also, some people with a shorter middle finger, they could have, especially if they have a shorter index finger as well, like a lack of self-confidence. They might be lazy, or they're okay with someone else doing all the work, whether it's at the job place or even at home. So they're a bit, I guess as a way, you could say they're also like less rigid, but as a result, they could also have a tendency to be not as ambitious. Now with the tall middle finger, it's something more probably higher at this height. And people with a long middle finger, just think of them as maybe super ambitious, but to the point where work might take over their life, or they just take things too seriously. They definitely are more into, again, this finger has to do with authority, career, and your views on it and your attitude towards it. So just the more of this finger you have, the more, you care more about the rules, authority, kind of like someone that plays by the book, follow, and again, follows the rules and just doing the right thing. They might feel like duties and obligations are, I don't want to say a heavy burden, but more so like it's an obligation, a duty for them to get XYZ done. So sometimes people might think that a person with a long middle finger might be a bit boring. They are, however, dependable, trustworthy. But again, because of the workaholism, they can find it hard to relax. And because of that, more of having this middle finger, there's a big attitude of or sense of responsibility. So for example, they might volunteer at a workplace because they feel obligated that they should, when in reality you don't have to. Also with middle fingers, these long middle fingers, they could be analytical, or also more of a methodical or planning nature before they jump into new situations. Again, this is only one marking on the hand. If they have knuckles or just like finger shapes that are more like a knob, like you see the knobs here and there, and the fingers aren't as smooth, then that also proves further that this person is super analytical. So with the ring finger, if it's short, so I'm thinking more like that, and I'm just gonna mark here for a tall ring finger. This is average right here. So when it comes to having a short ring finger, again, this has to do with your creativity, your self-expression, so the way you present yourself to the world. So if it's short, this person might not have interest in the arts, and it's not important to them. As a result, they might not also care about how they look or fashion, or they're not into like home decorating because they just find it unimportant. In addition, they might, because this is about self-creativity, self-expression, they might find it hard to express themselves, express their emotions, especially if you have a short pinky finger. So because this person finds it hard to express their emotions, they might come off as insensitive or whatnot. When it comes to someone with the tall ring finger, they might express themselves a lot in sense of they could be that person that could be flashy, or they like to show themselves out there for attention, or even be flirty. Because there's more extra of this ring finger, which is self-expression, they may be larger than life. So it's normal to find this on people that are possibly like showy marketing, sales execs, or artists, celebrities as well. They also, again, with self-expression, with this finger here and creativity, they might have a really big flair for the arts, and they might be just naturally gifted in being artistic. And finally, the pinky finger. So this one is average in height. So if there's one that's maybe this short, or I'm gonna mark that, and then this is for something that's a bit tall or longer. So when it's short, usually, again, this has to do with communication. So if it's shorter than average, then they have a hard time communicating how they feel and making them feel understood. So I think with this person, I definitely recommend journaling, or even this person, I wouldn't be surprised if they bottle up a lot of emotions. And I do recommend, if you need help with that, to maybe do talk therapy. This person might also, especially if they have a short index finger, which is low self-esteem usually, then it just shows that this person wouldn't be confident in using their words and communicating with people around them and even their own partner. So overall, someone with a short finger, they can have difficulty communicating and getting their point across. They might feel like they have a loss for words. And also just they're just not sure, or they have a hard time just expressing themselves overall. Now, if you have a long pinky finger, then just think of this as just really great with communication. Again, the more extra the finger you have, the more of that kind of vibe or that energy of that you have with that finger. So imagine someone that probably is really naturally good with languages, or they're really good at vocabulary. You can think of like writers or even comedians. They might be a talkative person. They might be really funny. And I wouldn't be surprised, again, if someone has a long pinky finger, then they could do really well career-wise in anything that has to do with media or communication. You also might have that friend that is a really great storyteller. So that's someone that is, again, with a long pinky finger. And finally, we're going to hit on the fingerprints. So there are 4 basic fingerprints. There's a couple different other varieties. So I'm just going to touch on 4 today. And the fingerprints on each finger, if you take a look at them, they're most likely, this is a very common loop. So this is one you probably find on most fingerprints. Again, it's just a loop pattern you see right here. The arch is kind of, think of it looks like a hill. And this looks the whorl looks more like a circle, or like a hurricane, if you kind of want to look at it that way. So this is another photo of them just to kind of give you a sense. Again, the arch looks like a hill or a valley. The loop, which is really common, it's probably the most common one that everyone has. And then the whorl, circle. The 4th one is called composite. So it's you can see it's kind of going one way this way, kind of like a loop. But then there's another one that kind of goes this way as well. So I'm just going to try my best here to draw it so you can kind of get a gist. Kind of like that. So kind of like a yin-yang type of shape. If you see someone with a lot of loops on their fingers, like majority of their fingers are loops, then it just shows that this person is someone that in general is easy to get along with most people, and they kind of blend in well with the crowd. And so again, it's kind of like, it's called usually the common loop because it's commonly found on most people. You just easygoing, sociable, fits in well with others, and prefers to maybe just, I wouldn't say follow the crowd, but they're not usually the type to try to stand out from the crowd on purpose. So with the whorl, when this shows up on a finger, it usually means that this person can be very, maybe not tunnel vision, but more of like they can shut out the world and focus on a particular subject. So think of like a mad scientist, right? So that's just an exaggerated example, but because they can zone in on something, they can be really good at that hobby, that skill, or their specialty. It has a different meaning depending on which finger it's on. People with a lot of whorl fingerprints, it also means they're individualistic in that area of their life. So for example, on the index finger again has to show about your self, the way you view yourself, your self-identity. So if you see this whorl on an index finger, it shows that they have a strong sense of themselves as an individual that's different from the crowd. And as a result, they can also tend to be, I wouldn't say a lone wolf, and they can do well working alone, working independently. Now, if the whorl is on the middle finger, which has to do with your attitude and outlook on structure, career, authority, then it means that this person is likely to have very individualistic or very different of their own ideas on what rules should look like or authority should look like. And they're probably going to have their own, kind of like think someone that's has their own different opinion about success or even like how a company should be run. I wouldn't be surprised if this person is in an unusual job or hobby or follows like a non-traditional path, especially if they have this on their middle finger. When the whorl is on the ring finger, again, the ring finger has to do with creativity and your own flair and the way you express yourself. And so when this person, I've seen this a couple of times on creative people on their ring finger, and usually they just have an individual certain taste, creativity, the way they dress, their taste in music or even fashion. So think of like someone that has I guess you can say an eclectic sense of style or a flair for design or originality in their taste. And on the pinky finger, again, the pinky finger has to do with communication. So think of this person, if this whorl finger is on there, it might show like they have quite a thing with communication, meaning like language. They might have an individual style or taste in, or they might like be in a specialized language field. When it comes to the arch fingerprint, it means that it's kind of like similar traits to what an earth hand would have. So practical, cautious, prefers stability in that area, grounded, realistic. So if you have a lot of these on your fingers though, like almost all your fingers, then it can show that you're really stubborn, because again, and if you're really overly grounded, if you're overly, I guess like realistic, or you're overly not open to change, then, it will show that you're stubborn. It can also show tradition. So whorl is more like very individualistic, and I would say the arch is like the opposite of it, where it's very like traditional, old-fashioned, or stability, prefer stability. So when you see it on the thumb, it can show that this person is stubborn, but they also might see a practical way of approaching their career or their life in general, anything. If you see it on the index finger, which has to do with yourself, the way you view yourself again, then this person can be cautious. Their mindset and the way they approach things could be reliable. They also are dedicated and loyal people that have that sense of wanting to provide security for their loved ones and also everything around them. I wouldn't be surprised if someone with a middle finger and an arch wants stability in their career, is into probably less likely into an unstable startup and taking that risk. They're more likely into wanting to know when their next paycheck is going to be. And they prefer a stable lifestyle as well. Now, if you see an arch on the ring finger, again, the ring finger has to do with the way self-expression in terms of your creativity. And usually this person, their taste, instead of here where the whorl might be very individualistic, a very eclectic taste, This one might be more into old traditional art forms of art, or just like old skills, maybe into carpentry, things like that, glass window making, like historical art maybe. So instead of this one's more just probably more just different, possibly more into modern art. And the arch on the pinky finger, again, the pinky finger has to do with communication and speech. So this person might be more cautious. They might be they don't want to maybe rock the boat as much. They're more cautious and tactful when they speak. They might take more time to think about what they're about to say. And finally, you have the composite whorl. So when you see this fingerprint pattern, what it means is that usually this person, there's a pro and con to this. So because this person sees both points of views, that's usually what it is. They can naturally make a great counselor, a great therapist. However, because of this, they usually have a very difficult time making their mind when, so, like if you have a friend that says, hey, where do you want to eat? And, do you want to eat at place A or place B? They're like, oh, I don't know. Like they never usually can make up their mind on even like simple everyday choices. So when you see it on the thumb, that means they usually see they might have a tendency to have difficulty deciding on plans in their life goals. They might not be certain at all. And so in a way, with some people, they could possibly have paralysis analysis, and they might be just wavering back and forth choice A and choice B a lot. And these people might not be, it might be that friend that just has a hard time being 100% committed. So you never might get a straight answer from them usually. So with these people, I would just suggest that if you are at least just 60% certain of something, then it's probably good enough for you to say yes to. When you see this print on the index finger, which has to do with how you view yourself and everything. So because of this person that's more likely to be indecisive, they are more likely to be influenced easily by their partner, by their family, parents, and what everyone else wants. So again, they can't make up their mind when it comes to their own personal needs. And because they see both sides to a story, they can be very diplomatic, and this is in a way a gift that can be really good to develop. When this fingerprint is on the middle finger, which has to do with your viewpoint and attitude towards career, authority, and like just the law and everything like that, this person might be, again, feeling a bit compromised because, again, they see both sides to the story, but it has to do with career, that has to do with their authority and things like that. So, they might be like, oh, I don't know if I believe in spirituality or if I believe in like traditional beliefs, or I see both sides, or they feel a bit anxious finding the right, choosing between career choices or like their own belief systems. And so again, the composite, if you see it on the ring finger, the same thing affects with them, but more so in the sense of creativity and self-expression. So it could affect them in their, let's say, like artwork or like any thing they might be projects they might be working on, creative endeavors, creative projects they might be working on. And if it's on the pinky finger, then again, it has to do with communication. So sometimes they might have a difficult time trying to communicate because they don't know. They're still debating like which point of view to make, or which point of view to choose from. They might have a tendency to not want to choose sides. So again, anything with the composite whorl, it has to do with overall, they see both sides of the story. So they, in a way, it makes them a great writer naturally, but as a result, they can be indecisive. So there you have it, all about the fingers. So let me know your thoughts on what you find on your own fingers down in the comments below. In our next video, we'll be talking about the mounts, or what I call the puffiness on the palm and what they mean. If you're interested in getting a personalized palm reading, tarot, or psychic reading, make sure to check out our website at thehappyhealingshop.com. We also have a blog there where we share tons of good free information about everything in the metaphysical world. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram and Facebook at The Happy Healing Shop.